Hey gang, I got an offer for you today from LinkedIn. As business to business marketers, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. On LinkedIn, you have direct access to build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives. 10 million are C-level executives. You will also be able to drive results with targeting and measuring with their tools built specifically for B2B. And best of all, they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads also rank #1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of the Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit. It's a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. It's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It's about the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. I am your host, Seth. With me is the podfather of podcasting. Well, podfather, I can't use podfather because I think Adam Curry actually
Yeah, I'm
has the
definitely not.
trademark.
I'm definitely not the podfather. I consider
He's like the
myself.
pod geek.
I'm a podcast good Samaritan.
There you go, the podcast Good Samaritan of the internet. Travis Brown. He is the pod deck king. That's what we can do that because that's kind of your thing.
Yeah, I am the pod deck king. You're right.
You are the pod deck king. I actually first found out about Travis from his videos on Instagram about, guess what, pod decks. Those who don't know what pod decks are, they are essentially playing card sized cards with questions on it. And so it helps you kind of come up with your own questions. You can use his questions. I have one I use on every episode, which we'll ask Travis later, that I love. And it's the one I use. I mean, it was worth buying all the decks to find this one card. This card is like, I'm going to frame it.
Well, you got to
'Cause it,
check out the Hustle deck in the app because that's that's an entrepreneurial
I'll
business.
do that. I'll do that next. And
Okay.
we'll talk about the app too. That's really cool. Not only does this guy do physical decks of cards, the guy has an app. How cool is that?
Well, it's pretty cool, but there's a reason that I built the app, and I can tell you
Oh,
why.
oh, absolutely. We hear it all. All right, Travis, give us a little background on you. Who are you? Who is Travis?
Yeah,
Like, where'd you go to school? All that good stuff.
who is Travis? So Travis Brown is a guy who grew up in St. Louis, kind of a weird childhood, just a product of like divorces and stuff, which led me to my first escapism, which was creativity. So escaping my family life, not a victim by any means, just I think we
Just
naturally
normal divorce Michigas kind of
yeah,
stuff.
so we naturally try to find escapes, and creativity became that thing for me, drawing, singing, all those things. And so as I grew up, I was always attracted to making things. Like I can remember back to like being like 7 and trying to start a business with one of my friends. Like we should start a little business or we should start a band. And so it's always been something that's been in me is
That's awesome.
is the creator, like let's make something out of nothing. And then I grew up and I got into a band, like a rock and roll band. And of course, then I got introduced to drugs and alcohol, and that was my new escape, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So did pretty well, like worked really hard, traveled the country, put out records, got a record deal,
Wow.
I still get royalty checks from songs I have on TV shows. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So
That's pretty wild. What was it, the Travis Brown band?
no, the band was called Split Habit. It was 3 of us, me and 2 of my friends, and we made it to a point where it was just like there was nothing else we could do ourselves.
Yeah.
We needed that record label, the machine to like push us out. And this is the truth about everything. The music industry, just like the podcasting industry, isn't fair. Like the best podcasts in the world aren't always the ones that get heard by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really grateful that it didn't work out because it's led me to my current life. So anyway, Did the gypsy lifestyle, toured the country, slept on couches, was broke. One day I woke up and just decided, I've had enough. Everybody else I know has a car and a condo and health insurance, and I have $0 in the bank. I feel like crap, and I need to make a change. So I quit the band and I said, I'm going to get a real job, like one of those real jobs. And so I got a cubicle job, the cubicle of hell.
Ooh. Oh,
And I would
cubicle.
drive to this office an hour there and an hour back. And so I started to use that time to turn my car into a mobile classroom. And I started listening to podcasts because I wanted to scratch that itch, that thing that was inside
Yeah.
of me. So then I found podcasting and I was like, wow, a lot of these podcasts sound really bad. They sound like the audio quality is just so bad. Maybe I
Especially in the
could.
early days, they were like ham radio.
Yeah, and, everybody has to start somewhere, but I was
Mhm.
like, the message is so good, but the audio is so bad. It's like watching a TV station that has fuzz on it, the static on it. So I started to figure out podcasting myself, and then I ended up going to a mastermind meeting where I met a guy who said he was interested in podcasting. I said, "Let me do you a solid. Let me help you start this thing, and let me help you put it out into the world." He's still my client to this day. His
Oh,
name's Tom
wow.
Reber. He actually just got an HGTV show that is now aired through his podcast. Like
Oh,
that's
wow.
yeah, that's the power of podcasting. So, I never advertised what I did. I never really got on social media until recently to talk about podcasting, and it was just one person recommended to another
Yeah,
person, recommended to another person, and then I had a business. I had an agency. And
that's
so
nice.
now all I do is obsess about podcasting. That's my whole life is figuring out new ways to present the same idea in a different way to people to inspire them to create, grow an audience, and maybe even monetize that audience.
Absolutely, and that's kinda where the Podcast Builders Club came out, right? Is that when it came out, or is it a little bit later?
Podcast Builder Club was this year. It was an opportunity. This is what I want to say, and this might go against some of what other people, you know,
Mhm.
preach, but like I'm coursed out. I am coursed out. Like I'm sick of making courses and I'm sick of buying courses. I want a little more connection
Mhm.
to a person. And so when I started thinking about like, okay, well, I could do courses and that's fine and dandy, but I can see in my dashboard that people don't ever finish the courses.
I'm guilty of that.
We all are. Like it's
Oh, I'm
not.
so guilty.
Yeah.
I have access to your courses, and I much rather talk to you or talk to Big Rob and the gang than
Yeah.
watch
So
a course.
it's like, how can we change the model? And
Mhm.
so Podcast Builder Club was something that plays into one of my kind of like my DIY brain, which is like community. Like, let's actually talk to each other and bring each other up. So I tried to put a spin on courses and started a little mastermind groups where
Mhm.
I could get hands on and kind of shake people up and try to get them towards their goals. I mean,
Mhm.
I think a lot of us probably feel the same way. Like I'd be much happier if somebody I helped got more successful than me. And I know that sounds weird, but like the more success that I can get behind, the better I feel.
Oh, absolutely.
Not the number in the bank account, not the, people tell you about ROI and churn and all this crap.
Oh, god, yeah.
I'm looking at impact. That's my KPI, and I feel like in my heart that I'm making an impact, and so I feel like what I'm doing is really good.
It is. I can vouch for it, I've been following you for I mean, I thought for longer than a year, but maybe not. But and I'm in your mastermind, and I'm getting so much out of it, and I'm loving it, and the community is great. So you've done the musical entrepreneurship, you've done the corporate world, cubicle-hell ship, I would call it. But now you're back to entrepreneurship. You're married, 2 kids, house in the burbs.
Yeah.
What is the scariest thing about this whole journey you're on?
The scariest thing is, I think, the anxiety of, am I doing enough? So I don't feel like I work a day of my life. Like I will literally work from 8 in the morning till 5 p.m. and I will do more than most people do in a week. And I still feel like I'm not doing enough or touching enough people. And that's the scariest thing for me. Like, if this all imploded and I had to start over again, I would be okay. I'd be like, I'll figure this out again. Because
Mhm.
there's really just a few key things with entrepreneurship. It's like you have to build a community, listen to pain points, and solve those pain points. And, people buy from who they like, know, and trust. So that's your
Mhm.
community. And if you actually genuinely care about them, they will feel that and they will
Mhm.
tell you what they're struggling with. And then you can basically create a product that solves that problem. All good products solve a problem. So I think even if you blindfolded me and put me in a different state and said, "Hey, you got to start a business in this industry," I think I could probably figure it out based on the experiences I've had from not only the successes I've had, but more from the failures. Like this entrepreneurial journey wasn't my first. I've done a multitude of different projects that did okay, but weren't like the big thing. So what when I reflect on that, each one of those journeys taught me something that I'm now applying in this one.
That's
So,
awesome.
the scariest thing possible would be that they take the internet away.
Oh god.
'Cause then
Please don't.
then I got a megaphone and I gotta walk around and talk to the
I can
world.
see you probably have a megaphone knowing
I
all
do
those
have a
props.
I do
Of
have a
course.
megaphone.
If people don't know a little background on that, if people don't follow Travis Pod Decks on Instagram, the guy has like the Muppet like wardrobe room where it's like I like he has the most random stuff. He comes out on a reel and it's like, now why in God's green earth would Travis have that? I mean, it's great. It works for the video, but who has a space helmet that like what? Then you crack up. First of all, you the first time you watched the reel, thank God I didn't do it twice. The first time you crack up laughing because you realize Travis is completely insane.
I
And then the
am.
second time, and like he's just having a blast, and you're enjoying that. And then the second time, you're like, wait, he actually said something. Let me listen again, and then you get to the meat of the matter. But the first time, you're like, what's this nut up to now?
Amazon is a very dangerous place for me because I
Oh
can
my
find
god.
almost any prop that I need and get it delivered in a day. And now I have a drawer full of wigs and masks and props. But listen, I love making these like little short like films almost. Like I'd much
Mhm.
rather like instead of me pointing at a bubble and dancing or doing what all the other trending people are doing, I'm just like, what do I like? Well, I grew up on like Kids in the Hall and like Saturday Night Live and all these
Yeah.
things. And it's like I'm taking those influences into making something that I'm really proud of. I don't care if it gets a million views. It has to get a million bumps in my heart. It has to be like a
Mhm.
1,000,000% like, oh, this is definitely me. So I love it, and being a bald guy, it's easy to throw on a wig.
Yeah, it's true. I'm gonna learn that very shortly. Very shortly. I'm learning I can keep my hair at my side of my hair short, and I don't get hat head anymore. It's glorious.
Yeah, that was probably the best thing I ever did was just start shaving my head. No worries about headphones, hats, uh,
It doesn't mess anything up.
no,
It's
there's
brilliant.
nothing to mess
There's a
up.
side effect, but it's good. So you have 2 kids. Do they like to play in your prop closet too?
Oh, yeah. My
You
kids are
let them you run around.
my kids are actually probably one of the best inspirations for me because
Aw.
I think what happens is, like, kids just don't have a filter. They color outside of the lines, they do whatever they want. Like, I love that kids, when they're done with something, they just drop it. It's like, "Put this away now, I'm just done with this, drop this." They're so
I'm done.
free, right? And
Yeah.
then something happens, and I'm gonna find out what year that is, how old they are, when the outside pressure takes away their freedom. And
I
I
think it's around 3rd grade. My 9-year-old is he's still pretty free-willed and still makes a mess, but he's definitely a lot more maturing
okay.
in a way. But the best thing is, like, people like you and me, we never quite grew up. Fuck the system, and
Yeah,
it's like, I'm 40, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm 40, I feel like I'm a big furry kid.
yeah. I mean, so I like to look at them and go like, if I can make them laugh with one of my pieces of content, then I know it's good because they're
Oh, yeah.
like, they really don't understand it, but it's making an impact on them. So I look at them and, for every wig I buy, I get to chase them around in it and they think it's funny or they
Oh,
get to put it on. So they're a big part of the inspiration I have with podcasting, art, content,
mhm,
like just being a person. Like, I see kids like they don't discriminate against each other. Like we live in a very
yeah.
multicultural neighborhood in Chicago on purpose because we want that exposure. I've never heard my daughter or anybody say like I'll ask her, "What does your friend look like?" "Oh, she has brown eyes, brown hair." Never talks about the skin color at all. And I think that
Doesn't even occur to them.
no, no, not even remotely. And
It's brilliant.
so I think that we all need to find that inner child,
Mhm.
especially like social media like should be fun. I think
Yeah.
like it shouldn't be all doom and gloom and seriousness. So put on a wig and make fun of yourself and see if your audience likes it. That's my thought process. Because what's the alternative?
Hey there, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. Real quick, I want to make sure you know that the world's leading B2B Marketing Expo is returning to the Los Angeles Convention Center on March 21st and 22nd. It's high time we got back together to learn, see the latest technologies and solutions, and network, right? Join thousands of marketing professionals just like you to learn from over 250 industry expert speakers, educational masterclasses, and over 300 exhibitors. And this year, your ticket also gets you into the Sales Innovation Expo and the Marketing and Advertising Expo. So it's like 3 conferences in one. It's March 21st and 22nd at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Go to b2bmarketingexpo.us to register. That's b2bmarketingexpo.us. The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of the B2B Marketing Expo for 2023. We'll see you in LA.
We're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show. All right, so we talked about what the scariest thing is about being an entrepreneur. What's the best thing?
Freedom.
Mhm.
That I get to choose my adventure every single day. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not working. That just means
Mm.
that I have the opportunity to say, "Hey, today I'm a little tired. I'm gonna take a nap."
I
Or
love
today,
that. I love those midday naps.
midday
It
naps
means I
are
work later. I mean, it means that, oh, that hour, I'm taking that hour from like tonight, putting it now because I'm not getting anything done for this next half an hour. I love it.
yeah. So I guess the sort of the freedom of I'm steering the ship and it's my job to get everybody where they're going, but I get to kind of pick my course. And I think that's what we all I think that's what really is underneath the desire to be an entrepreneur is to
Mhm.
be able to say, you know, today I don't feel like doing this. It needs to get done and I'll get it done at some point, but I choose to do this today, or I choose to not do anything today, or I choose to chase a new thing today. And that's exciting.
It is.
That's exciting.
It is. And so I'm gonna ask you about the origins of pod decks. But first, I want to ask you something from the pod
Yeah.
decks. The interview deck is what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time. Now you can't say that's tough because you wrote the question. So
Yeah, I know all the answers, by the way.
yeah.
Just kidding. The questions might be the same on pod decks, but the answer you get will always be
Oh, this one
different.
surprises me. If people since I've been asking this question, people are always surprising me with their answers.
I'm gonna go ahead and say my wedding ring because
Ooh.
if I don't wear my wedding ring, I feel naked, and my wedding ring represents obviously unity with my wife, and to me, it represents like my family. It's like I do have a lot of hopes and dreams, but I feel in my heart like I do put my family first, and that means when people ask me to do podcast interviews, they're like 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, sorry, I can't do that. I have, I'm dedicated to dinner time, bedtime, bath time, and
Mhm.
there's like almost nothing that can steal me away from that. So I would say like the obvious answer is like your phone because we're all addicted to our phones. But like I think anytime I take my wedding ring off, like even just for like just to like take a break from it, I feel as if something is missing. It feels as if it's almost like part of my finger. That might have been the weight I gained over quarantine that's just surrounding the ring now.
Oh my god, it took me forever to take it off. I now wear it around my neck because my finger's too fat. I have my wedding ring, but it's around my neck because I have to wait. I have to get resized because,
Yeah.
pandemic. Go figure.
Yeah, it happened to everybody. The quarantine 15 to 30, that's what I'm calling it.
Oh no, no. Some people that I'm friends with got 6 packs. They went the opposite way, and I'm
Hmm.
like,
We all handle stress differently, don't we?
so all right. So pod decks, they are essentially playing cards for podcasting.
Yeah.
How in God's green earth did you come up with a
Total
deck of
accident.
cards?
Total accident. So I sold all my time through my podcast editing agency. So I was maxed out. And this is when I was doing everything all by myself. So I was
Oh
working a
my
full time
god.
job and I was editing. I can't remember how many clients, but I got to the point where all I was doing was working. And I was like, okay, I can't take any more clients on. And people were still contacting me wanting to launch podcasts. So I'm like, okay, all the gurus say build a course, sell while you sleep, that whole thing. So I spent 6 weeks making this like it was called Shortcut to Podcasting. It was an immersive course about how to launch a podcast from zero to hero. And one of my favorite authors, Alan Dibb, wrote a book called One Page Marketing Plan. Highly recommend it for everybody. But in that, he talks about the lumpy envelope strategy, where if you receive something in the mail that you didn't expect, and it's in a lumpy envelope. It's the first thing you'll open, and if it surprises and delights you, it does something really amazing for your relationship with your customers. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell this course and make it a medium ticket item. And when people buy it, I'm going to send them a deck of cards of questions that I have that I just called friends questions. I use them at dinner parties. I use them. There was a notes on my phone, and people would always tell me like, "Wow, like this was so fun. You're amazing. You're like the host of the Tonight Show." All because
That's awesome.
I asked questions and listened to their answers and had a conversation. So I sold a few courses and mailed out the decks, and then it stopped. No one was buying any courses. And so I started to
Uh-oh.
freak out. And I'm like, hey, by the way, if you buy this course, you get this deck of cards. And I was trying to use that as another tool in my marketing campaign. Well, what happened was people were emailing me saying, hey, I don't want the course. Can
Oy.
can I just buy the decks? And I was like, nah, this is a bonus. I'm not a deck company. And then another email and another email and another email. Until I said, you know what? This is obviously something people want. So I took the minimal viable product strategy and I was like, what could I call this? Okay, podcasting, deck of cards, pod decks. Okay, pod decks. And I
And
pressed,
the domain name was available.
the domain name was available, pressed 10 decks. It cost a fortune because if you don't buy anything in bulk, you're paying more for printing. But it was a test. I was like, let's see if other people want this. Is this a fluke? So I pressed like 10 decks. I made a little ad on my phone and put it on Instagram and sold out like instantly, almost instantly.
Wow.
And so I was like, that can't be right. I don't know how to do social media ads. Let's try this again. So I ordered 100, ran the same ad, and sold out in a day. And I was like, okay,
Now you gotta start buying bulk. It's getting
yes. But my belief with businesses is I don't ever take seed money or investors or any of that stuff. I like to do the DIY, like I call it parlaying a business, where I'll take a little bit of money and I'll invest it, like my money. Let's say it's $500. And then I take all the profits that come in off that and I reinvest it and I reinvest it and I reinvest it instead of taking money out of the business and buying dumb stuff. Like that's what most.
honestly, all the dumb stuff you want, you can buy it through the business.
Also true, but, like, I think most people just take money out and then they fritter it, and
Yeah,
in the beginning stages of any business, you really need that reinvestment into it to potentially get the money later on. So, yeah,
absolutely.
so then Poddex became a thing, and the cool thing for me was, unbeknownst to me, I had created a blue ocean product. Like, it's not an innovative product by any means, but I created this new opportunity for podcasters to gamify their podcast, to
That's awesome. Yeah.
have more fun with the podcast, not have to put so much pressure to research, and they could have a little more spontaneity. And so, to my surprise and delight, last year I've sold thousands of pod decks all around the world, and I
That's how
get
I found you.
I get people that email me and say, "Hey, listen, I took these on a date and it wasn't going well, and picked them out, and then we got a second date going." So like the
Ooh, you're a
communication,
matchmaker.
yeah, the communication portion of it is really cool too. Like, yes, it's marketed to podcasters, but you could use it in any setting. You could use it with family and friends. You could use it on a date. The real magic that happens is you ask somebody a question that they don't always get asked. They give you an answer and you talk about it and you learn things about people.
Yeah.
And that's the key to charisma. You want to have charisma? Ask somebody a question, listen to their answer, and then remind them of their answer at some point. That's
Yep.
called charisma. Or that's called, I don't know what that, maybe it's not charisma. Maybe that's another word, but that's a
Chutzpah.
chutzpah. Yeah, that's what everybody wants. And they try to figure it out and it's like people want to be heard. Hear them,
Yeah.
acknowledge them.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So Travis, best place to find you. I know the answer, but the audience doesn't. But the best place to find you.
Well, I'm pretty much all in on Instagram. And I just want to share this with you all. I used to try to be everywhere, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's not, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, baby. Pick your favorite platform
Yeah.
and go all in on it. My favorite platform is Instagram because I think I'm just of that age and I think I'm
Mhm.
just better. I'm able to create what I want on Instagram. So that's where you can find me. And I follow back, I send audio messages, I engage, if you hit me up there, you're hearing from me. You're not hearing from a social media team. I make all my content. It's my little world. So I would love to meet you.
That's at Poddex.
Yeah.
All one word, no dots, because Instagram every once in a while puts dots in things, and it really ticks me off.
Yep. Just
So it's Poddex.
PODDECKS. Super easy.
That's easy. Awesome. And then check out Podcast Builders Club on Facebook.
Yeah, so I have a
Yeah.
free community
Yes.
that is, in my opinion, the best podcasting group in the world because we keep it really clean. And it's not about dropping your show link. It's about connecting and collaborating with other podcasters, your peers. And so I do a lot of trainings in there. I do a lot of giveaways. I'm just community to me is everything. Like this fabric of people that are all working towards the same goal. So we got that. And then of course we have the Poddex app. So if you
Yes.
don't want to carry around a bunch of decks in your pocket,
This is brilliant.
or if you buy pod decks, you can unlock your decks in the app digitally for free.
Ooh.
So I want you to have your questions with you at all times. And the deck, or excuse me, the app really came from a friend of mine, a colleague of mine. She is in social media marketing, and we were at a podcast convention. And I was talking to her. I took her to lunch, and I said, I'm kind of trying to figure this all out. And she's like, dude, someone's going to steal this idea from you. And she was saying it in a way like to get me motivated, but it really made me think like, yeah, any big company could just come in with, hundreds of thousands of dollars that am not investing
Like
in this.
Hallmark even.
Yeah, anybody could just come in and just make another version of it, which in the end wouldn't make me stop doing what I'm doing, but there is that
You
chance.
just put the original in front of it.
Yeah, the original, exactly.
You can say the original.
Yeah,
That's a
Travis's
deal. When people-
original pod decks.
Yeah.
So I started to think about, well, if they didn't do cards, what would they do to potentially put me out of business? And I immediately thought they'd make it a mobile app. And so as soon as that dawned on me, I said, okay, this is a big part of business. I need to think about how I can put myself out of business. And so my friend Kyle, one of my best friends, he's a web developer, and he was at my house, and I said, hey, do you think you could make a mobile app? And he's like, I think so. And he started working on it. I kind of drew it out. I sketched it out. I'm like, this is how I see it working. There's a library of decks. You're swiping cards like with your finger. And he's like, okay. And he brought me version 1. And then we optimized it until we had a full-blown, amazing, beautiful working app. And I thought when we launched this app, Seth, that no one would ever buy a deck of cards again.
No, people. Honestly, I prefer to actually hold the card
Yeah.
in my hand. It sits on my desk every day. Reminds me of Travis. Aw.
Poor
But
guy.
it's also could do so many freaking podcasts during the week. It's just there, and I don't have to go sifting through the deck to find it.
Yeah.
But I like it's something about. I'm 40. I like all the books behind me.
Yeah.
I'm getting into Kindle books, but I still like a physical book.
Yeah. And that was something that I didn't realize. And so I'm thinking I'm putting myself out of business, and all I did was I multiplied my output by thinking about how would someone else with a huge budget, instead of feeling the lack of that, I took the reins and I rode the horse up the mountain, and now I have 2 businesses off of the same business.
That's awesome.
So yeah, in the mobile app world, first app, never thought I'd have an app, and now I'm an app developer. So
It's kind of cool.
It's pretty
kinda
cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Travis, this has been great. Thank you for coming on.
Can I ask your listeners just one
Yeah.
favor before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, Seth is an amazing dude, and he puts out really great content, and he puts a lot of work into this podcast. He puts out a lot of podcasts. So what you could do for me is simply just go after this show and leave him a review if there's a place you can leave a review, whether that's Apple Podcasts or his website. But it takes 2 minutes. Give him a 5-star and write something nice, because podcasters don't get a lot of feedback from their audience. So if you actually are enjoying this, or you've ever enjoyed this podcast, just go drop a line, because it's going to fill up Seth's cup all the way to the top. He's going to be recharged to come back next week to bring you that content. And it's the simplest thing you could do. It's the golden rule of the internet, right? If you enjoy something, try to do something to pass it along. So that's all I ask of your audience.
Well, thank you, Travis. This has been awesome. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
You're the best, Seth. I love you, man.
Gold Theme Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Smallwood hosts a great podcast called Small Business Success Talk. Christy, tell us what these fine folks will get out of listening.
Well, you get the feeling of not being alone in building a small business. My guests have shared their success stories, their biggest challenges, their best practices, the passion for what they do, and what success really means for them. It's a mix of mindset, heart, and how-tos for the small business community to learn from each other.
Awesome. Where can people subscribe?
You can go to smallbusinesssuccesstalk.biz, or you can find the show at marketingpodcasts.net, or you can search for Small Business Success Talk wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.